This is Carola DeVille, and you're watching Inkwife TV. I have a lot of clients who want me to do cover-ups or to rework their old tattoos. That's not the preference of many tattoo artists out there, but I enjoy it. It's like getting a piece of antique furniture and, refinishing it, covering up some old yucky stuff and giving that old piece of art some new beauty. And such was the case with this little robin tattoo. My client wanted me to add some watercolor flowers around there to soften up the hardness of the traditional robin tattoo. It needed a bit of heavy black in there because there was a heavy black outline around the original robin. So I used a little bit of black in the flowers, stamens, and some black and darkness on the little branches of the flowers. But I didn't want it to be too heavy. I'm trying to make everything lightened up. So around the edges of the flower, I went in with my 23 curved mag and added some magenta so that there is some shape and a little bit of dark stability to the outside of these flowers. I didn't want them to be outlined because that to me would have felt too heavy and take away from the watercolor effect that we are going for. I did want to freshen up the lines on the outside of the robin though, so I quickly went through that, mostly hitting the outside lines to straighten them up. I wanted some of the old lines on the inside of the feather to stay light, so I only went around the heavy weighted outside lines of the sparrow. Once that was finished, it was time to put a medium pink into those flowers to fade the petals in towards a light center. I am not running my machine very hard. I'm probably running it around 5 volts or 5.2 because I don't want the ink to be hitting real hard and heavy into the skin. I would rather go over it several times with it running lightly to so that I'm able to fade out better towards the edges where I want the color to go in lighter. She wanted the sparrow to be lighter, so I accomplished that by going over some of those darker areas with white. I also freshened up the orange on the chest and added some golden yellow to that as well, so it was lighter as well. And then you saw I put a little reflective highlight into the sparrow's eye. For the watercolor, I'm just freestyling this. I've done watercolor a lot of times, and so I start with adding some splatters and squiggly lines that sort of look like paint splatters to show me where I am going to end the hard edges of the watercolor. I'm just making it up as I go. I can always add more later. I don't like to overdo it too much at the beginning. I've done that before, and then you can make the watercolor look too heavy, and we didn't want that. I can add more later if I want to, but there's no point in overworking it at the very beginning. After I put in that hard edge of watercolor splatter where I want it, I take my mag and work towards the inside, in the direction of the bird, making the watercolor more solid where I want it and light in some places. With watercolor, you need some variation. It can't all be the same heaviness. It needs to have some hard edges and then a lot of soft edges. We wanted to also pull a bit of the watercolor into the sparrow, so I added a little bit of blue into some of the feathers, and you saw around I added a little blue highlight onto the head as well. And here I go onto the tail some. I am still just shaping the watercolor from my imagination. There's no rules here. You know, start out with something that is reasonable and sensible, and once you get that filled in and looking nice and balanced with your dark areas where you want them and your light areas, you know, where you want, then you can go back in and add extra touch-ups like I'm doing here. You know, so it's like the little final pieces. Just add those last little droplets where you feel like they might be missing. And we're about done. So here's the old piece. You can see he is significantly lighter now. And both the client and I were very happy with how this piece turned out. Thank you.